Hello, welcome back to the reading of the poem of Man God, written by RevealstoJames, Volume 2. Chapter 257, Part 1. Jesus reveals to James of Alphaeus his future apostolic mission. 20th August, 1945. It is the same time on the following day. James is still in the fissure of the mountain, and is sitting all curled up, with his head almost resting on his knees, which are drawn up and embraced by his arms. He is either engrossed in meditation or sleeping. I do not know which. He is certainly unaware of what is happening around him, that is, of the fight of two large birds, which for some private reason are dueling fiercely on the little meadow. I would say that they are mountain cocks or wood grouse or pheasants, because they are the size of a cockerel, with variegated feathers, but they have no combs, but only a helmet of flesh, as red as coral, on the top of their heads and on their cheeks. And I can assure you that if their heads are small, their beaks must be like steel spikes. Feathers fly in the air, and blood falls onto the ground in a dreadful noise, which has caused all whistling, trilling, and warbling to come to an end among the branches. Perhaps the little birds are watching the wild fight. James does not hear anything. Jesus does hear, and comes down from the hilltop to which he had climbed, and clapping his hands, he separates the two opponents, which fly away bleeding, one towards the mountainside, the other to an oak tree on the top, where it tidies its shaggy ruffled feathers. James does not raise his head even at the noise made by Jesus, who takes a few more steps smiling and stops in the middle of the little meadow. His white tunic seems to become tinged with red on the right-hand side, so deep is the crimson of sunset. The sky seems to be catching fire, and yet James cannot be asleep. Because as soon as Jesus whispers, he just whispers, "James, come here." He lifts his head from his knees, frees his legs from the embrace of his arm, stands up and comes towards Jesus. He stops a couple paces before him and looks at him. Jesus returns the glance gravely, but encouraging him at the same time, by means of a smile, which is not formed by his lips or his eyes, and yet is visible. He stares at James, as if he wanted to read the slightest reaction and emotion of his cousin and apostle, who, feeling, as on the previous day, that he is about to receive a revelation, turns pale and becomes even paler until he is as white as his linen tunic, when Jesus raises his arms and lays his hands on his shoulders, and remains thus, with arms stretched forth. James then looks just like a sacred host, only his mild dark brown eyes and his brown beard give some color to his expectant face. James, my brother, do you know why I wanted you here, all by yourselves, to speak to you after hours of prayer and meditation? James seems to find it difficult to reply, as he is so deeply moved. But at last he replies in a low voice, "To give me a special lesson, or with regard to the future, because I am the least capable of all. I thank you from this moment, even if it is for a reproach. But believe me, my Master and Lord, if I am slow and incapable, it is due to inborn deficiency, not to poor will. It is not a reproach, but a lesson for the time when I shall no longer be with you. During the last months, you have pondered in your heart over what I told you one day, at the foot of this mountain, when I promised to come here with you, not only to speak of the prophet Elijah, and to watch the infinite sea shining over there, but to speak to you of another sea, greater, more changeable and untrustworthy than this one, which today looks like the most placid of all seas, and yet in a few hours it may swallow boats and men in its voracious hunger. And you have always linked what I told you then to the idea that your coming here had some connection with your future destiny. In fact, you are now becoming paler and paler as you realize that it is a grave destiny, a heritage full of such responsibility as to cause even a hero to tremble. A responsibility and a mission to be fulfilled with all the holiness that is possible in man in order not to disappoint the will of God. Be not afraid, James. I do not want your ruin. Therefore, if I destine you to it, it means that I know that you will not receive any harm from it, but only supernatural joy. Listen, James, set your heart at rest through a fine act of abandonment to me, so that you may be able to hear and remember my words. Never again shall we be all alone as we are now, and with our souls so prepared to understand each other. I will go one day, like every man who has a limited period of time to stay on the earth. My stay will come to an end in a way that is different from that of men, but it will still come to an end, and you will no longer have me with you, except through my spirit, which, I can assure you, will never desert you. I will go after giving you what is necessary to enable my doctrine to make progress in the world. After completing the sacrifice and obtaining grace for you, by means of that grace and of the sapiential septiform fire, you will be able to do what you would now consider madness and presumption even to imagine. I will go and you will remain, and the world that did not understand Christ will not understand the apostles of Christ. You will therefore be persecuted and dispersed as the greatest danger to the welfare of Israel. But since you are my disciples, you must be happy to suffer the same afflictions as your master suffered. One day in the month of Nisan, I said to you, you will be the one who is left of the prophets of the Lord. Your mother, by spiritual ministry, almost understood the meaning of those words. But before they come true for my apostles, they will be realized with regard to you, James. Everybody will be dispersed except you, and that until you are called by God to his heaven. You will remain in the place to which God will have elected you through the word of your brothers. You, the descendant of the royal race in the royal city, to raise my scepter and speak of the true King, of the King of Israel and of the world, according to a sublime regality that no one understands, except those to whom it is revealed. There will be days when you will need strength, perseverance, patience, and unlimited sagacity. You will have to be just with charity and with the pure, simple faith of a child, but at the same time erudite as becoming a true master in order to support faith attacked in many hearts by so many enemies, and to confute the errors of false Christians and the doctrinaire quibbles of old Israel, which is blind now and will become even more blind after killing the light, and will twist the words of the prophets and even the instructions of the Father from whom I come to convince the world and itself, in order to give itself peace, that I was not the one of whom patriarchs and prophets spoke. They will instead state that I was a poor man, a madman, a dreamer, according to the better ones, a possessed heretic, according to the worse ones of old Israel. I beg you then to be another myself. No, it is not impossible, it is possible You will have to bear in mind your Jesus, his actions, his words, his deeds. You will have to become molten in me, as if you lay in the clay mold used by those who melt metals to shape them. I will always be present, so present and alive with you, my faithful ones, that you will be able to unite yourselves to me and form another me, if you only wish so. But you who have been with me since your earliest youth and have received the food of wisdom from the hands of Mary, even before you received it from mine, you who are the nephew of the most just man that Israel had, you must be a perfect Christ. I cannot, Lord, give that task to my brother. Give it to John, to Peter, Simon, to the other Simon, but not to me, my Lord. Why to me? What have I done to deserve it? Can't you see that I am a poor man, capable of one thing only, that is, to love you and firmly believe what you say? Judas's character is too strong. He will do well where paganism is to be demolished, not here, where those who are to be convinced of the Christian faith believe that they are absolutely right, as they already are the people of God. Not here, where those are to be persuaded who, although they believe in me, will be disappointed at the course of events. They are to be convinced that my kingdom is not of this world, but it is the entirely spiritual kingdom of heaven, the prelude to which is a Christian life. That is, a life in which spiritual values are the prevailing ones. This has been a reading from the poem of the Man God, written by Maria Valtorta, Volume 2, Chapter 257, Part 1. Jesus reveals to James of Alphaeus his future apostolic mission. Thank you for listening. I will see you tomorrow. May God bless you, and may peace be with you.